and welcome to this YouTube channel. My name is Sruti, and as you will see in many of these videos, I share my experience with pain from an illness called interstitial cystitis, and using this pain as a tool for a deeper spiritual self-inquiry. Today I would like to introduce to you my book called The Hidden Value of Not Knowing. And I would like to read to you the preface of this book as an introduction to my offerings. I had been rolling around face down on the upstairs bathroom floor. The pain had returned that evening, even though the scans for tumors had come back negative. The doctors could not offer me any comfort or explanation, but they did prescribe me codeine. That evening, I took the codeine, feeling relieved to cut this episode short. Even so, I was still confronting the uncertainty and ongoing pain of this illness called interstitial cystitis. What a strange mystery that after spiritual awakening, the physical pain can continue on with such intensity and without explanation. I felt the effects of the codeine spread through my body, and I was able to stand again, although I was shaking. Slowly I made my way down the stairs and into the living room where the television was playing. Feeling exhausted, I sat down to watch the documentary show that had just begun. The scene opens with a dramatic struggle of life and death. A flock of storks are making their yearly migration from Africa to the mainland of Europe. The camera is zoomed in close to their long white wings, following their flight as they speed across the ocean. But we see they are flying dangerously close to the surface of the water. Flapping their wings heavily, we hear the narrator say they are in serious trouble, for if even one feather touches the water, they will fall in and drown. It is clear that they are very tired as they struggle and strain out over the vast open ocean, and there is no land in sight. Transfixed by the terrible scene, I realize that I am watching these beautiful birds in their final moments. Suddenly the camera zooms out, and we see up ahead there is a lifeline. A small rock island juts out of the ocean, a lone stepping stone in the great expanse of the sea, and it has appeared on the horizon in their flight path. On the edge of my seat, tears filling my eyes, I strain to see if these birds will survive. My own experience resonates deeply with the intensity of their plight. I feel the weight of their struggle as they beat their wings, and watch as the surface of the water draws closer beyond their control. They are alone and their strength is failing over this stark seascape. What can save them? As we watch them fight to reach the island, we hear the narrator say that if they can just reach the shore, that help is waiting for them there. He explains the situation with science. The air temperature over land is much hotter than over sea, and this creates something called thermals. He explains that since hot air rises, that these thermals are like invisible elevators in the sky. If the birds can reach these hot air currents, they will rise quickly and effortlessly. As the camera zooms out further, we see that just in time, the front of the flock has reached the edge of the island. The birds are now inches from the water. but as the camera circles around them, it captures a miraculous scene. Hundreds of feathered bodies are lifted up together, away from the ocean's dark surface. One by one, like stepping stones, they are rising on the air currents. For a moment in time, the whole flock arcs across the island, and they form a cluster of white freckles against the bright blue sky. Like flower petals in the breeze, bathed in blinding light, they swirl upwards hundreds of feet into the heavens. Tears are streaming down my face at the sight of these birds as they are saved at the last moment by these thermals. They have been carried so high that as the camera becomes level with their bird's eye view, we can see the mainland of Europe in the distance. They have made it, the narrator says. They are so high now that these exhausted birds won't have to flap their wings any longer. They don't need to struggle. They will glide gracefully the rest of the way home. The story of the storks would become parallel in many ways to my own migration. I was moving across the country to a drier climate that I hoped would help alleviate some of my ongoing symptoms. I had just finished planning out the driving route and booking hotels along the way, packing the car full of my belongings, 2 cats, and my brother. We set out early one morning. After driving for most of the day, we had already crossed the borders of several states, but we were still a few hours from our planned hotel. As the daylight began to fade, I needed to use the bathroom urgently, as I so often do with interstitial cystitis. So we spontaneously pulled off at our nearest exit. Pulling into a shopping plaza at the top of a hill by the highway, we found a restroom, but when we tried to start the car again, there was a terrible noise. The whole car was vibrating violently and would not accelerate. It was late in the day and our car was failing. We did not know where we were, and on this hot summer evening, both cats were crying out from the back seat, hungry for their dinner. Standing at the edge of the plaza on top of that hill, I looked out over the horizon for help as my brother made a series of urgent phone calls. I noticed that the sign across the way said hotel, and I called over to see if they had a room available. Not only did they offer me a room that evening, they were also able to accommodate our 2 cats. Canceling all of our other plans, we started the car again and shuddered our way across the road to the hotel, pressing the gas to the floor. We could only manage to crawl up the hill slowly, and the car engine died as we rolled into our parking space. That evening we called around for a car repair, but found that we needed specialty parts. Just in the same spontaneous way that we had accidentally found a pet-friendly hotel room when our car had broken down, we also found a specialty dealer within a short towing distance. They were able to fit in an appointment for the next day. Despite our troubles, we would be able to repair the car and finish our journey. However, I was not feeling very grateful that evening. As I was lying in bed, I felt drained and tired, because underneath these unexpected circumstances, my never-ending task was always managing the pain of interstitial cystitis. As I lay there, feeling the pain and the exhaustion, I found a television channel that was showing the very last episode of the documentary series where I had seen the flight of the storks. This was a special episode. It showed the behind the scenes of the whole documentary series, and I learned that it was filmed over a 4-year time period. The cameramen had raised most of the birds from hatched eggs and trained them to fly next to their helicopters and planes. Most of the series was planned and staged by human intervention. But when we came to the part of the show that had so moved me, the story of the migration of the storks, they admitted that this segment was entirely unplanned and unscripted. They had planned to film the arrival of the storks on the mainland, but this year they were very late. As the days went by, they became more concerned and decided to take their helicopters out over the ocean to look for them. This was how they came to see that the storks were in trouble. They could only film the experience as it was happening, not knowing if the storks would survive or how. It wasn't until later on, as they were watching their footage, that they felt inspired to include this moving scene in the final cut of the show as the opening segment. Suddenly, I realized that I was watching this particular episode because our car had broken down unexpectedly on that day, at that time, at that place. As I watched this behind-the-scenes special, I became overwhelmed by the behind-the-scenes inner workings of grace. In the midst of my pain and exhaustion, love had found me, and I was unraveling at the seams, struck by the synchronicity. 4 years of making a documentary, one unexpected scene. A flock of storks in trouble, a well-placed rocky island, and the science of air thermals. The story of the storks that had become a metaphor for my own pain and suffering. My own parallel migration that had taken unexpected twists and turns. The hotel, the cats, the broken down car. The exit on the highway we chose because I urgently needed to use the bathroom. Watching the behind-the-scenes footage that evening in the hotel in order to perceive harmony in all of the people and places. The extraordinary and divine timing, the struggle and the grace. The plans for my trip had been disrupted, but more deeply I often felt that my whole life had been disrupted by pain and illness. But like the storks who found themselves carried by air currents in their darkest hour, we may find that when we experience something painful or unexpected, that it serves to reveal a deeper peace and harmony. Like the storks, we may find that when our circumstances seem out of our control, that we have the opportunity to discover how we are carried. We can live the metaphor of the storks so that we more clearly see and feel the grace that lies within our experience but beyond our knowing. True peace does not come from arriving safely or even successfully finishing our journey. It comes from revealing this bedrock of grace in each moment within the heart of our most challenging circumstances. And this is why I share my honest experience and why I wrote this book in the midst of an episode of intense pain. It is because in pain we can more clearly see through all of the transient layers of our experience. In great pain, when all of these layers are erased, we see clearly that what always remains is the simple bedrock of grace. I remain as nothing, rest as empty, even if the pain continues. This peace amidst pain, this relief that has no condition, the love that is always carrying, is what I wanted to know so deeply within myself, and so it is also what I want for others. As we move through life, we can remain as quiet inside as the baseline of experience. If we are quiet enough, empty enough, we will feel the wind beneath our wings and know in each moment how we are carried. Perhaps we find that we are carried by a force that is far more loving and intelligent than we will ever understand, that pervades every molecule of this existence and of every being. When I come to the baseline of knowing nothing in myself, I find I am in love only with this one who is always carrying me. Inside, when I am nothing, I am also one with wholeness. The baseline truth of my being is always here, as my own immediacy, where I see no separation. And I find that regardless of the circumstances, I am always gazing into the eyes of God in a world that is born from this grace. Sri Ramana Maharshi once said, "The world is illusory. Brahman alone is real. Brahman is the world." Thank you for sharing with me today. If you'd like to read more of this book or see more videos, there is more information available on my website, which I will post below. It is www.shrutisangha.org. Whether you are experiencing physical pain or simply willing to accept painful circumstances as part of your deeper self-inquiry, I'm very much looking forward to meeting you in satsang.